Malkuth is a gate. It's a gate into the unmediated. It's a gate into the world as we experience it. And when that gate is opened and we walk out into the world, we remember where we are. We stand essentially amongst the combined furnitures of our minds as they have been dissolved like a sugar cube into a perception of vast openness. And when I say the furniture of our minds, what I mean is that everything that has gone before the process of Malkuth, specifically the consolidation that has occurred in the sphere of Yesod, forms itself into an invisible set of parameters or filters, which themselves dissolve upon the experience of the unmediated Malkuth. This means that all the spheres in between Kether and Malkuth are a kind of filtering system, a pendulumic set of checks and balances that assemble into a prism and then vanish in the encounter with essentially the origin point. And this is why Malkuth is said to be in Kether and Kether in Malkuth. This completes a circuit, and you can in fact nest the trees, stacking them like a ladder or into a wheel. And the tree of life diagram is not static. The tree of life diagram is an assemblage of elements that allows the energies to be interrelated in a cohesive and complete whole. A set of conduits, if you will, that move through nodes, energies passing continuously through what amounts to a sealed yet open system. And by sealed or enclosed, I mean with definitive forms. And by open, I mean with the ultimate possibility of realizing transparency with the whole. And when we step into Malkuth, we're really stepping back into our own shoes. We're really taking this whole energy of the lightning bolt, which follows the path of the creation of the Sephiroth, and we're grounding it. We're earthing it. And so everything about this week is about coming back to the real, earthing the energies, completing the series. And so for this reason, the Malkuth is a gate. It's a gate or a front door into the world. And later on, I'm going to ask you guys to go into the world and go on a walk. We're going to talk about this at the end of the video. But there's another aspect of Malkuth that I want to talk about. Malkuth is an altar. And what is an altar? We talked about it in week 4. An altar is a table. And on this table, marks are made, frames are laid, and objects are arranged. And you don't have to know intellectually what everything means, although it helps. But sometimes there's just an act of play whereby we create an altar. We create the furniture on the table, which is blank. Malkuth is a blank, and yet we arrange it. And our lives are the arrangement of elements on the altar of Malkuth. The tetractys of the Decad is Pythagoras' fourfold formula for going from 1 to 10, from the monad to the decad, via the tetrad and the triad. And so, the tetractys shows us that the four basic elements symbolized by the suits of the tarot, the wands, the cups, the swords, and the pentacles, and also, especially, by characters such as the pages and the aces. The pages and the aces have a special relationship. The pages carry the aces. And so here, down at the end of the series, the entire energy system is completed by the introduction of the pages. And the pages are children, potentialities, nascent possibilities for the development of that element. As I build this altar, it's not a schematized or planned thing. It's a type of improvisation. I have the elements with me, objects of beauty and meaning, and the actual process of assembling the altar is itself a process of meditation. And so I cleaned the space, I assembled the elements, and I decided that I would share this process. Because at the end of the day, it is the process that gives us the understanding. So I have the pages and the tens. And these 4 quarters for fire, water, air, and earth map onto the Watchtower system from Enochian Magic, which the Golden Dawn integrated into their work, and also onto the pentagram, where if you were to draw the pentagram, the element of spirit would be here, and then earth, water, air, fire. So there's many layers, and the tetractys of the Decad in 4 stages produces the tree of life. There are more than one tree of life. The one that you see depicted in the drawing on my mat is known as the Kircher tree, whereas the one that these 10 stones form, these 10 stones from Newfoundland, is a Gras tree. And a Gras tree has simply taken the middle pillar, which is descendant, if you see in this Kircher diagram, and has filled the gap of Dath with beauty, creating a symmetrical tree known as the pre-fall tree, the Gras tree. This is not a common tree to be worked with in the tarot tradition, in the Hermetic tradition. This is something that comes up more in Hebrew Kabbalah, but it's worth exploring. In some ways, it's a lot simpler. Now, as we play with the process of assembling elements, my pentacle, an object that was given to me. It's an old box, but it's round, a couple hundred years old. It's been in my family for a long time, and I see that as my pentacle, a pentacle, a physical representation of material objects. This was a gift to me as well, this athame, symbol of air. These objects all came to me over many years. They were all gifts. You can make your tools, you can find your tools, you can have multiple sets of tools. If you lose a tool or it's broken, there's this definite sense of stress that occurs, but it's healable. We are ultimately the magic. It's within us. And though we find objects that mean a lot, tools that are in some way key parts of our practice. Remember, the furniture of Malkuth is endowed with magic because magic is our conscious capacity to assign, to wield, to emanate meaning. We are the dreamers, if you will, and the dreamt. And as I put this together out of found and meaningful objects, I can feel my connection to the world assembling, concretizing, forming. And yet, when objects on a table are symbolic of our spirits, it's interesting because they become both incredibly powerful and present and real, but also vulnerable. Because physical objects are subject to entropy. And so it's on the level of Malkuth that we need a kind of constant, continuous maintenance and care. Because material objects are, of course, subject precisely to the vagaries of existence, entropy. And yet something about care is itself negentropic. Something about that care that comes, that consciousness that comes and meets the vulnerable materiality and shepherds it or cultivates it, has a negentropic, an upstream flow. And so we make a magic, a ritual out of icons on a table. And it is a play. And it is intuition. And it is poetry, which is magic. The Page of Wands. Page of Wands has a leaf or a feather in their cap and wanders through the mountains. It's the promise of an adventure to come, the promise of a spiritual journey, a discovery, looking brightly upwards towards the future. There's hope and optimism and a tremendous sense of nobility and dignity lying kind of nascent within a childlike form. And we talk about entropy, we talk about responsibility and weight, and in the world, of course, the element of fire, which represents spiritual intent, is itself burdened by having to work to uphold, to carry, to move upstream in a kind of action of, I guess you could call it hormesis. Some would call this a lazy man's load, carrying everything in one go rather than in multiple journeys, in such a way that it's at risk of falling. Overburdenedness. So you can notice that in Malkuth, the masculine elements tend to be ill-dignified, while the feminine elements really are essentially at their very, very strongest. So this is a reminder not to overburden yourself, not to break yourself under the yoke of perfectionism. And Page of Cups, she's looking towards the past. And interestingly enough, this hat that she's wearing is it's a mem, which is the letter that means water. And she's one of my all-time favorite pages because she's looking at this, talking to this fish. You know, the voice of the ancestors, the voice of the deep, the directional facing to the left indicates the past, whereas with the Page of Wands to the right indicates the future. But she's not in total profile, but rather sort of facing front, facing the present, but connecting to the past. And this is the dawning faculty of intuition, of dreams. And I would see messages in dreams being indicated by this being. As I said, the Ten of Cups, very well dignified. It's a great rainbow. Rainbow symbolizes both a bridge and a bow, and in the story of Noah's Ark is the symbol of the covenant, the promise that God and the children of Israel will, God will protect them, as it were. It's a symbol of wholeness and fidelity. And you see a family here, which is lovely. You know, there's almost a legacy going on, and you know, children and bounty. This is a beautiful and joyful card, and this is about appreciating what you have, and really appreciating, particularly, I want to say, beauty. When we look out in the world, has a beauty to it that's sublime, and we can sometimes miss that when we get caught up in our interior games. How often are we actually in Malkuth? If Malkuth and Kether are the only truly real spheres, are we in Malkuth / Kether as much as we could be? This might be the problem of initiation in a nutshell, is that in order to truly see the world and our place in it clearly, we have to move through our filters, and we have to tune them, and we have to come to understand them and set them up via a study of ourselves and of the tarot in such a way that at the end of the day we can relinquish them, even though they remain in place for our lives. But tuning them so that they may be effortlessly released upon death seems to me to be a wise use of this particular skill set. To see the world clearly. The Page of Swords. Bodies towards the future, head is starkly towards the past. This is a dynamic cards. It's a powerful kind of sense of being arched, being poised. Also, with the clouds are somewhat ominous, and many birds in the sky. There is a battle to come, and this is the training for it. This is the apprentice at the art of defense, whether that's intellectual, like philosophy, logic, or whether it's martial arts. This is the nascent dawning of the skill of battle, really. And we have the Ten of Swords, the card that represents the final destination of an energy. This is total annihilation. When you think about this, it can be unnerving, especially if you hold by the idea that when we read tarot, we're reading about things that are going to happen to us. I always bring up the fact that this card is actually, when people think it's a bad card, I remind them that if you're a surgeon, this is exactly the kind of energy you bring to bear on a cancer, for example. This is if you've ever disinfected if you ever disinfected something, a toilet, or a wound. That's the Ten of Swords. That is total annihilation for the microbes. This is a sort of decisive destruction of an energy, and that energy can be toxic, which is why this in a way I think is the power to kill. And that can be meant metaphorically. Obviously, we don't like to think of ourselves as killers per se, but this is a reality, and that unless we are extreme pacifists, maybe Jains, we don't we do kill things, even if they are insects, cockroaches. This energy eliminates another energy, and the reason for it is because usually the other energy is a hazard, is a danger. So thinking about this not from a point of view of moral judgment, but from a point of view of function, it sits in the tarot as one of the tools that is employed by human beings and other animals. On a metaphorical level, of course, it means walking away from something and not looking back. And most people will talk about dawn, the sunrise in the background, which suggests that something new is coming. And it's true. This is the release, the final release of a pattern and moving on. Comparing it to the 9, which is kind of a slow, torturous pain, the 10 is finality, and therefore a new beginning. And Page of Pentacles, looking towards the future, but also towards the present. Body is tilted towards the foreground, towards us, but holding up this beautiful coin or egg, and holding it up towards the right. I think his hat is very similar to the Page of Cups. In both cases, they have these draperies. In terms of Hebrew letters, I'm inclined to see in this one a kaf, which means the open palm. Or possibly a kof, which means the back of the head. I'm not sure it's intentional, but certainly there's a lot of symbolism buried in these cards. The background, the lush fertile fields, the cultivation, this is the promise of abundance in its nascent form, in its incubation period. This is a very, very beautiful card. And the 10 of Pentacles, which is a marketplace, bustling, and look, there's the 2 white dogs. The pentacles are arranged in the shape of the tree of life. And this, in a way, could be seen as the last card in all the tarot. Certainly the last card in the Minor Arcana. And it is the capstone, if you will. Or the cornerstone. Choose your metaphors. But it is a key and a completion. And so we draw on all the energy of the past 10 weeks. And we imbue this altar with the magic of Keder, Chokhmah, Bina, Chesed, Gevurah, Tippereth, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, and Malkuth. Grounding it here in a representation of the energies of spirit as they exist on all 4 worlds. And so I invite you to make an altar, to craft a kind of a table of your relationship with tarot, with magic. And I am going to propose that we walk out the gate. And to walk out the gate, I mean we're going to do, I guess, what some might call a little vision quest. So what I understand by a vision quest can be anything from a very long journey in which you set out with a spiritual intention and you go on a journey with no knowledge of where it's going to end, and you have encounters that will teach you along the way. And this can be months or years or decades. But the way I practice it, I will go on a walk, and before I go on the walk, I set an intention. And in this case, the intention will be to connect to this deck of cards and to the spirits and awareness of our own genius, if you will, that links us to the world, that grounds us. And with the physical deck, I'm going to leave my house and go for a walk. I'm not going to bring my wallet or my phone. If you're going on a big long journey, you decide. But I'm going to go into the trails behind my house, and I'm going to take this with me. And the important thing is that there's no ulterior motive. I'm not going to go on a vision quest on my way to pick up milk. I'm not going to piggyback anything else on this. So in a way, it's a energy that is exclusively devoted to this intent of having a communication from spirit. And that complete dedication, without reservation, without qualification, without any pragmatic side plan, is kind of what we call acting without lust of result. It's a type of play. So it can be long or short, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 3 hours, but I would mark its beginning and an end with a gesture. And what I normally do is I'll touch the ground and I'll make an arch, and I'll step through it, and I'll turn around and I will close it. By passing through a threshold or a portal, that opens this, practice. And if you run into other people on this, just be normal. But it's better to not encounter other people, because it's really a journey into yourself. Because you find that as you walk in this mode, everything will have significance. The birds that talk to you will have significance. The things you see will have significance. A profound sensitivity will open up, and I encourage you to listen and to connect, to hear and smell and perceive on every level you can. If you're doing this in the city, it'll be different, and you'll have to adjust to that. If you're doing it in a country or in a park, then it's perhaps more possible to become completely introspective. However you choose, the exercise is to go pass through a little gate and have an adventure in the world behind that door, and bring your cards, because there's nothing I can really tell you to prescribe, but you may use your cards, you may encounter an object, you might make art with leaves, but whatever you do within that space will be significant. And once you feel that adventure has impacted you in some way, then come back, open the gate again. Doesn't have to be in exactly the same place, but it can be. open the gate again, pass through, turn around, and close the gate. So this is a practice whereby you can experience an almost dreamlike journey into your own unconscious. In my experience, the practice draws elements of the spirit world up into the material, and so as you walk, what do they say? Trees are no longer trees, and clouds are no longer clouds, and mountains are no longer mountains. So it is important to come back out and to close that gate behind you, just so that you can practice regulating when you're in that mind state or not. It's important to have that ability, because we do need to be able to, at least at this stage as an incarnate beings, open and close the doors of perception. If they get blown off their hinges, it can be kind of discombobulating. But that's all for today. So enjoy Malkuth week. Go for a walk. Bring your cards. Connect to them. And come back, and I will see you anon. My name is Dr. Peter Duchemin, and this is the Forest of Life Venus calendar, week 10, the week of Malkuth.